I'm Jimmy Lewis.
I'm Trevor Hunter.
We're with Dirt Bike Test, and today we're talking about Yamaha's 2020 YZ125X and YZ250FX. These are, well, they're both race bikes, right?
Yeah, they're Yamaha's cross-country race-oriented bikes. They're pretty similar to the motocross models, but they're also distinct enough to be off-road racers.
And we were joking around yesterday in some of our posts and stuff. We called one the much better motorcycle, and one is really, really fun. But those are both kind of subjective questions. I would just sit here and bet every last dollar that if I were racing, I would choose the YZ250FX for almost every performance criteria out there.
I would tend to agree. 125 is good, but the modern 250S, especially this Yamaha, is really tough to beat. It does everything really well.
And when we're comparing it to a 125 two-stroke, the Yamaha 250 four-stroke with that torque and that long power, and especially the torque, because I think that's where that bike really shines,
Yep.
Kind of annihilates the 125. And I mean, you got to understand, it has a I don't want to say it has a substantially longer power band. And, peak power, it's just got a little bit more. So all in all, everything considered, like when you're riding them and you're racing them, if you're not on the pipe, got that 125 singing, any time you're losing ground to the 250 four-stroke.
Yeah, the 125, you definitely have to be on your game. You can't just tiptoe around, can't putt around like the 250F, where you can get kind of lazy in a sense. Whereas the 125, you got to be really aggressive. And you can ride it fast if you're really aggressive 100% of the time, but then you start making mistakes and then you lose more time, whereas the 250F, you just go.
Here is where I'm gonna tell you, I just said that the 250F is better for racing on every accord. Here's where it isn't. If you're a younger guy and you're coming up and you want to be a fast racer, or you want to improve and you want to be better, spend some time on the 125, because just what Trevor said, you have to be on your game, you have to make your shifts at the right time, you have to be ready with the clutch. Those are those learning tools that will help you. It's not going to mask any of your riding ability. You've got to be on point with that 125. You've got to make it sing. And I feel like when I ride the 125, I have a lot of fun. And here's where the 125 kicks the 250's ass every day in my world. It's just a lot of fun to ride because, the throttle, you can hold it wide open and it's not scary. It doesn't really get going, fast. It doesn't keep pulling. You got to make a shift to get it to pull. And and the other area where it really shines is that it's very lightweight. It's, what was it, almost 30 pounds?
Yeah, it's close to 30 pounds lighter, full tank of gas.
So with that, that's why it really appeals to a younger, lighter rider, someone that's moving up, because the bike just isn't gonna get out of control. And especially when you're coming off of a smaller bike, moving up to the big bikes, the 250F can really be a handful because it's just a few pounds lighter than a 450, and it makes plenty of horsepower.
Yeah.
The 125, I feel like a rider can actually come up and conquer a 125 and ride it to its potential, and then the bike isn't the limiting factor, it's the mistakes you make.
Yep. 250F,
the bike has enough power to make you make mistakes no matter how good you really are.
No, I have to agree with that. 250Fs are almost 450 like, whereas they have a lot of power, a little heavier, especially compared to 125. And they're easy to ride fast, but like you said, it's hard to ride it to its full potential, whereas a 125 is much more likely to ride it to your full potential, for sure.
Yeah, so that's kind of the breakdown between these two bikes. If you're purely racing and you feel like you're at the top of your game, you've got to have a 250F to be competitive. If you're moving up, you want to improve as a rider, you want to have a lot of fun, a 125, and I found myself giggling all day long when I was riding the 125. Actually, the last 2 days when I've been riding that bike, because it brought me back to my roots. I spent a lot of time racing 125, and I attribute a lot of my success to spending that time on the 125 to become better. I think it's awesome that Yamaha still offers it. And maybe one other thing we should kind of talk about is why these X's are kind of an important part of the model line. You mentioned some of the changes, and you can kind of go into that, why they're a little bit different than the motocross bike.
Yeah, so Yamaha with the 125X in particular, they changed the power valve. So it opens longer and I believe slower. So kind of makes the power more usable and more broad. And for off-road riding, or if you're just more of a younger rider trying to get used to the power, it's easier to ride.
Right.
Compared to the motocross bike.
And with that bike, it's literally, other than that, it's kind of the same bike. It doesn't have a bigger tank. It has an 18-inch rear wheel. It has a kickstand, but they didn't do a whole lot of changes. In fact, we're pretty sure the transmission is the same. The final drive gear ratio, it has a little bit bigger rear sprocket, which we think is a great idea. It helps out. It's kind of limited in top speed because of that. It depends on where you're riding, if that's going to be an issue. But then you move over to the 250FX. It gets the 18-inch rear wheel, the kickstand. But we just got done drag racing it with a 2019 YZ250F motocross bike, and they're basically identical.
It's identical until you hit 6th gear on the FX.
Well, I don't think that. Well, no, it was the same. They both hit the rev limiter at the exact same time. It's just you had a fat guy on the YZ, me, and you light guy. You just happen to be that 4 or 5 bike links that you got me when you rolled on. That's the difference in 30 to 40 pounds of weight attached to the motorcycle. But I think mechanically, a lot of the stuff is the same. It does come with a 6-speed transmission. I don't think that the ratios are any different. Like 3rd gear, when we did the 3rd gear roll on, they were literally identical, and you heard them hit the rev limiter like exactly the same time. So unlike the 450 where they do some monkeying around with the transmission ratios, this seems like it's the same. We have slightly different ignition curves in them. So that has some of the power character differences. They've tuned the FX to have a more off-road biased power delivery. And then it does have a bigger tank,
Yes, it does have a bigger fuel tank.
Yeah, so that's kind of a nice addition. And we were getting, we got like 65 miles out of it yesterday?
Yeah, more tighter trails. We got, close to 65 miles, and today we went over 60 miles, only had a little bit of gas, and we still had plenty left over.
Yeah, but there was no light.
Yeah.
There's no light today. So anyways, both pretty awesome bikes. Like I said, definitely different. Maybe they're not it's kind of moot point to compare a 125 to a 250F, but these are Yamaha's offerings for probably younger, more aggressive riders, and I think they've done an awesome job.
I agree. They're amazing bikes in stock trim. I could race both of those today, really.
I want to go race a Grand Prix on the 125. Yeah. Because I don't want to. I don't need to get any better. I just need to improve.
Throw a big tank on that thing.
I don't need a result. I just need to improve. So, anyways, for Dirt Bike Test, you guys can check us out on the web at www.dirtbiketest.com. You can check our Instagrams, our YouTubes, and Facebooks, and all that stuff. We'll see you out in the trail. Cheers.